you're tired of being censored on social media, join 60s.net. It's black owned, black operated, and black moderated, and we make sure it stays a safe space for us to talk about all things black culture. We also got some cool gear like the FDM cotton crew neck, the Fearless Ancestors tee, hats, and more. Check us out at 60s.net. Hey girl, why are you so sad?
I just got banned from Twitter again.
Should have been on 60s.net. Ah.
Tick faster, that'll be the hour they knock the slick blaster. Dick Bastardly and Muttley with sick laughter. A gunfight and they come to cut the mix master. And living the true gods, giving y'all nothing but the lick like two broads. Got more lyrics than the church got ooh lords. And they hold the mic at your attention like two swords. Or you the one with two blades on it. Hey you, don't touch the mic like it's AIDS on it.
All right. Welcome once again to the Beatzilla PDX official show. I am your host, Beatzilla PDX officially. And this is the weekly wrap-up. Hopefully everyone is doing well on this Friday Eve. And for those who are celebrating Passover right now, Shalom y'all. So, hey, man, there's a lot going on in the news. Not everything is being reported, though. So, it is what it is. So we have a few things to talk about, but this show mainly is to celebrate the Queen Mother, Dr. Frances Cres Welsing, and I will be playing some old pieces from her so y'all can hear her in her own voice. And then we will reflect and see how things apply today. So let's see what we got. Brandon Cruz sings, Judah Queen in the house, Silent D Productions, Desmond Works, Deneen Soul, Queen Adia, CH464. All right. So as people are coming in, I heard already that some notifications are not going out. So if you have not been notified about this broadcast, you might just double check and make sure you are subscribed if you just caught it on the fluke. But you know what it is. Anything that is pro-black will be shadow banned, whether it's big or small. And considering this is one of the smaller platforms of the new black media, they want to make sure that this stays small. But hey, it's not all about me. So as long as the message is going out and the movement is not hindered, well then whether you see my face or hear my voice or not, for those who know what they need to know, and the rest has already been history and shall be more in the future. So as we have more to come, it is what it is. This is the new black media. Be one to everybody here. And those of you coming in and those of you who watch from the wings, which is cool. You are welcome to do so. If you want to be in the chat, though, you have to subscribe to this channel, and you will also be notified if you hit the notification bell every time this broadcast goes live or we upload a video. But in the meantime, just hit the like and share button. Share it on your social media. There might be somebody teetering on the cusp of, the old plantation mentality or something new. So maybe this might be one of those things to get them over the hump of, as they say, wokeness. I hate using that term. I really hate using the term woke because, it's like we're just being ourselves for the most part for a lot of us. I'm raised around a lot of this, what people call pro-black, which it's not really. It was, truth be told, I was raised around black unity. And of course, there were other things that came in the mix to disrupt things. Of course, that everything, every season has its ups and downs. But for the most part, we had like black education. We got black history. A lot of people that you don't hear in the mainstream media. One person I could tell you who was absolutely irrelevant was John Lewis. So that's why you're hearing him a lot now. Nobody was talking about John Lewis when he grew up. Please. No, he was the last on anybody's mind. He was definitely one of the last on anyone's mind. So let's see here. So you know what? Let me do this. Let me show y'all something that's going on in Ethiopia right now. Matter of fact, let me put this on Twitter right now. Let people know we are live, just in case. We are live now. All right, so just in case notifications are not going out, because I was hit early that people did not know that this broadcast was coming. So who knows? I guess it's my turn. Oyela Ket, welcome. So check this out. With all of this aid and all of this money going over here to Ukraine, matter of fact, did I get that in here? Because I probably should play that first. Because you have a lot of these European nations stepping up for Ukraine. Oh, I need to get this in here first, matter of fact. I think I do have it in here because there's something else that they might not be playing on the news. And if anybody in the chat has heard anything about a peace talk, viewer one, hey, peace and blessings, my sister, the chief moderator in the house. Have you all heard anything about any type of peace talks between Russia and Ukraine? Because I have not. Other than this.
While seeking a ground of peace between the two countries for the end of the Russia-Ukraine war, a remarkable statement came from the Kyiv administration. Speaking about when peace will be established, Ukrainian presidential advisor Podolyak said, "It may take a few days or a week and a half to reach agreement on the controversial items. We need to get closer to forming a peace agreement during this time," he said. Talking about when peace will be established, Podolyak said in his statement to the Polish press, "At the moment, the Russian delegation and the Ukrainian delegation are both representing themselves, states where they are positioned. It can take a few days or a week and a half to agree on controversial items. We need to get closer to forming a peace agreement during this time," he said.
Anybody find it interesting that you're not hearing about that in the Western media? I'm just saying. And they say, there are conspiracy theorists all over the place, of course, we know. So, in other news, we have this situation that's going on in Ukraine, as we know, as they tell it over here. So let's see what Western media is talking about right now, shall we?
Around the clock, finally, news that speaks to us.
As the war wages on in Ukraine, there are a multitude of countries feeling the impact financially and with an outpouring of immigrants from Ukraine seeking asylum. In an effort to assist Ukrainian refugees, the United Kingdom is now offering an incentive. Anyone who opens their home to a refugee will receive more than $450 a month. Sponsors must first put up refugees for a minimum of 6 months and be vetted. They will also get access to health care and employment. The Homes for Ukraine initiative is open to everyone arriving in Britain from Ukraine.
Okay, so check it out. If y'all not really understanding what's going on right now, there's money flowing. And peace talks would be stopping the flow of the money. So the fact that Russia and Ukraine are actually in peace talks, oh, that little fact is getting way downplayed, isn't it? Matter of fact, we sending all of this money over there. Why is America still so concerned about sending money at a problem when they're at a table brokering peace? There seems to be a little call from the Negro section of America saying reparations. And the way out of this talk was war. But if both of them are having peace talks, well, then all of this other money that's trying to send over there is for nothing. Whoops. But let's see what Western media has to say.
And as lovely as that program is, can't help but notice that Europe did not do anything like this for Syrian refugees, which, of course, are refugees, largely black and brown people coming from the continent of...
Whoa. Syrian refugees are largely black and brown? Okay. All right. We'll roll with that. Did y'all catch that? See, Desmond Works, what's going on, brother? CH464. So now Syrians, who clearly are white, Tasha Peters, good evening, good evening. So now they're black and brown by the BNC news network standards.
Africa. Joining me now to discuss this blatant disparity is Immigration Chair for the National Bar Association, Alan Orr Jr. Alan, thanks for sticking around.
Oh, wait a minute.
Gives?
Wait. Hey. Let me back that up for you a minute. Because you probably missed it. So what she's talking about is Syria, and then she slips Northern Africa in there real quick.
Disparity is Immigration Chair for the National Bar Association, Alan Orr Jr. Alan, thanks for help but notice. Okay. They will also get access to health care and employment. The Homes for Ukraine initiative is open to everyone arriving in Britain from Ukraine. And as lovely as that program is, can't help but notice that Europe did not do anything like this for Syrian refugees, which, of course, are refugees, largely black and brown people coming from the continent of Africa. Joining me now to discuss this blatant disparity is Immigration Chair for the National Bar Association, Alan Orr Jr. Alan, thanks for sticking around.
For those of you who may watch the BNC network or watch any of Western media, Assad, if anybody knows where the location of Syria is, I guess if you're considering it to be Africa, I guess now they're starting to consider Israel Africa as well. The north coast of Africa, Syria. That is very interesting. So are we also including Israel into that? Because since Syria's sitting right here, Israel's right here. Israel's closer to Africa than Syria. Did I miss something in geography? Okay.
What gives?
Yeah, I think we know what gives, and we've seen it given over and over again. And actually, it's been told in the stories that these are white individuals with blonde hair and blue eyes, and that therefore their value is more important than other individuals that are not blonde and blue eyes, or not even on the continent of the United States. I mean, these people aren't even part of the EU. So it's quite interesting to me that in the circumstance, Britain, as once they left the greater EU, they have been very harsh on immigration and all immigrants. And yet in this circumstance, they're setting up a different caste system for being able to get money from the government to actually support immigrants that are there and giving them health care. So your question is just very sane. Why can you do this for one group of people and not for another group of people?
That's called the global system of white supremacy. Oh yeah, for all the people who are just now tuning in, that is what we do here. We call it as we see it, and we go hard on the system of white supremacy. So with that being said, this is what you are seeing, the system of global white supremacy hard at work.
We've heard a variety of explanations. Oh, Ukraine's a democracy. Oh, this is Europe standing together. These are educated and civilized people. That's all code, though, right? That's all coded racism. Is there a genuine economic concern here as well?
I think there is a genuine economic concern that people aren't treating people the same, and the equities that sort of exist, and any of the problems that exist on the continent or in the Caribbean are linked to the people in the EU. I mean, Haiti is only the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere because of the money that France owes them back for sort of buying their freedom. So when we talk about these conditions that are happening over and over again, and even all of the different atrocities that are going on in the continent that we know about in Ethiopia and the Sudan for individuals who are trying to flee that very hard circumstance, it still doesn't even get the light that the Ukraine war has going on. So the problem that we have now is the problem that we've been addressing in the United States for a very long time of understanding caste and race and class and how it impacts someone's value. And the world needs to now decide through the UN exactly what they're going to do with regards to these classes. Because even when you talk about Ukrainians and people leaving the Ukraine,
it ain't class.
Africa and the Caribbean weren't treated the same.
Do you see how they keep trying to sidestep blatant white supremacy? It ain't no caste system. It's you're not white. It's very simple. And they're trying to go into this long diatribe. Well, we got a caste system over there. No, you don't. You got white supremacy. It's real simple. I think that's all I'll play him, because something she mentioned is Ethiopia. Something they mentioned was Ethiopia. And that's why I wanted to play that part first, because, well, that's why I first wanted to play the peace talks, because now you were seeing there's a little more going on, right? I hope so. Oh, yeah, by the way, for those of you who don't know, that whole thing about the biolabs going on over in Ukraine that America has, and they have over 25 that have been operating around the world. Yeah, that we're one of those few people that even talked about that here. Because, we were able to get, again, that's why I tell everybody that watches this broadcast, get varied sources of information. Because if you don't, you'll just see what they want you to see. But get what they're putting out. When they put out there, whoever they can vilify, you want to make sure you can get a fair and balanced reporting, or do your own journalism and get that information for yourself. Because these people over here will tell you what they want to tell you, like how they'll say alleged or false claims. They'll put tag words and they'll repeat it over and over and over. That's not honest reporting. That's tailored information. There's a huge difference. And, we got to definitely decipher the difference between the real news and the fake news. So we already know now that the Western media is sidestepping the whole fact that Russia and Ukraine are already even discussing peace. We haven't even heard that word come out of no one mouth. They talk money, 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 money. But in the meantime, in Ethiopia, the one person who was telling, is there any what did I say? People out there with jabber's remorse. Well, it seems that the head of the World Health Organization is getting that wake-up call. Check this out.
In Ethiopia, 6 million people in Tigray have been under blockade by Ethiopian and Eritrean forces for almost 500 days, sealed off from the outside world. There is almost no fuel, no cash, and no communications. No food aid has been delivered since the middle of December. 83% of the population is food insecure. Our partners are running out of what little food they have and the fuel to transport it. About 3/4 of health facilities assessed by WHO have been damaged or destroyed. In February, WHO airlifted more than 33 metric tons of medicines and other supplies to Tigray, enough for 300,000 people. The first time we have been able to deliver supplies since July last year. In the past 2 weeks, WHO and our partners have distributed supplies to 65 health facilities in Tigray. But much more is needed, and we are now preparing to send an additional 95 metric tons of supplies, but no permission has been given yet. We estimate that 2,200 metric tons of emergency health supplies are needed to respond to urgent health needs in Tigray. Only 117 metric tons have been delivered, less than 1% of what is needed. But with no fuel, even if we can get supplies in, getting them to where they need to go is very difficult or impossible. The humanitarian situation in the neighboring Afar region also continues to deteriorate, with tens of thousands of people displaced and in need of food, shelter, and health services. But while the neighboring regions of Afar and Amhara are also affected, we have had far better access to those two regions than we have in Tigray. What is the impact of all this? People are dying. There is no treatment for 46,000 people who need treatment for HIV, and the program has been abandoned. People with tuberculosis, hypertension, diabetes, and cancer are also not being treated and may have died. As a result of the lack of fuel, some of our partners are having to scale back their operations. The situation in Tigray is catastrophic. The blockade on communications, including on journalists being able to report from Tigray, means it remains a forgotten crisis. Out of sight and out of mind. Yes, I'm from Tigray, and this crisis affects me, my family, and my friends very personally. But as the Director General of WHO, I have a duty to protect and promote health wherever it's under threat. And there is nowhere on earth where the health of millions of people is more under threat than in Tigray. Just as we continue to call on Russia to make peace in Ukraine, so we continue to call on Ethiopia and Eritrea to end the blockade, the siege, and allow safe access for humanitarian supplies and workers to save lives.
I wonder why they're not getting the same type of attention and focus and money. They're cutting off humanitarian aid to Tigray. How about that? I wonder where that money's going. You know, that area, they are actually part of NATO. Go figure. So the technical obligation for humanitarian aid would be your NATO allies in typical thinking. But see, here's the reality of white supremacy. They're white and they say so. Now are you guys starting to get it? Oh, I can get my name, this, I could do all of this. When they want to do that, and they want to be, I'm white and I say so, you will learn a lesson very quickly. Welcome to America. And all these people come over here talking about, oh man, can you imagine what half of these colonized individuals would be like in an environment where the Klan is running rampant in your city? No. But I don't understand how anyone can come here and disrespect the individuals who made sure that that died down. Foundational Black Americans owe nobody nothing. Nah, that's our bloody knuckles. So y'all have to, if you was stepping up to the plate like we do, we can, hey man, that's a different conversation. But until that point, we got a long-standing history of keeping it 1,000 here. So that's what we do. We support our own, and we are warriors naturally. You know what I mean? That's why they had to get us so far away from our own selves in history. Why do you think it's so important now for everyone else to come into our spaces and try to identify us? There must be something that the world don't want us to know. Anyway, check this out. This story just happened in my city. I just want to touch a little bit of news, and then we're gonna get into the system real good. Break some of that down. But there was a little incident that just happened here today. So let me report on this, because you got to understand, I live in a city where a lot of these Proud Boys and all of this, they plot and plan, and a ton of these individuals are clicked in with law enforcement. Do not let the media fool you. Just like the media is saying they ain't helping neo-Nazis. Yeah, they are. And the whole, if y'all have seen the meme that is condemning, says like all of these other nations of the United Nations came together to condemn, to condemn neo-Nazis. The two that didn't were Ukraine and the United States. Go figure. They definitely have something in common. Neo-Nazis, new age Nazis. They don't like what's going on. We're just going to go take it. I mean, come on now. They showed you what they are, and now they want to bring even more of them over here. And now we're going to all of this money to make sure that these little healthy white supremacists stay even healthier. But let them Negroes over there to actually whom you got treaties with flounder in the wind. Let's be clear. A lot of them, because we've already known what a lot of Ethiopians have said, they know and they speak this out of their mouth. We aren't the same as those American Negroes. We are different people. So now that we're saying reparations, now all of a sudden things have turned and, where y'all guys have end up ISIL. That's why you have people coming to our spaces talking that madness. But anyway, check this out from the people to whom they actually come over here and classify themselves as. White. Oh, wait, better yet, Caucasian. Ain't that what the Somalian man told us last week?
hundreds of pills and thousands of rounds of ammunition.
This is a wide-ranging and ongoing investigation.
All this seized by federal agents during 2 raids on houses in Salem just within the last month.
People said that there was a drug deal over there.
Neighbors suspected something was happening at the home on Owens Street South.
They had a lot of people coming and going in the middle of the night all the time. I mean, lots of activity.
Lynn Skinner watched the raid by federal agents go down from her window.
I knew exactly where they were going because I've watched this going on for 2 years. But I had no idea that there was like guns and stuff.
On February
So, family, if you were walking through a neighborhood on one particular day, Elijah McClain was walking through his own neighborhood. This woman said she knew that this house had action going to and fro all times and hours of the day for over 2 years. You didn't call the police. Karen didn't call the police, huh? But she can tell you all about it now on the news. But she did not pick up the phone to call the police. Interesting. I wonder what race these people are.
16th, investigators uncovered a workshop of sorts, they say, to make ghost guns, essentially untraceable firearms in the basement. Pieces and parts, tools and equipment, magazines and ammo. Plus two.
Why are they trying to see now? That's a lot of drugs that they got right there. Right now, we have a whole big old opioid crisis, right? So what you're seeing is guns, opioids. What could possibly help fund, or what if they said racist biker gangs have used to fund themselves in years past when we were growing up? All in the midst and for the purpose of gearing up for the race war, brother. Y'all better look a little deeper into what you're seeing, because they're trying to tell you, oh, it's just a bunch of, dope and this and that. And no. This is a lot more organized than they're trying to let it on. So what they're saying, oh, they had people coming and going, but nobody was calling the police on these people. That means that you knew who these people were. And number one, you knew what they represented. So we have a lot of white supremacists out here. This is how they get their money. So just take note of this, and notice how the media is going away from any type of organized association.
200 pills investigators say contain fentanyl, blue and marked M30, similar to these shown here.
This is scary. This is so scary.
Agents arrested 29-year-old Tyler Harnden. He's now facing federal charges, including intent to distribute and distribution of fentanyl and illegally possessing a firearm as a convicted felon. Investigators say he got drug addicts to buy guns for him in exchange for the counterfeit oxycodone pills.
How does this happen? How does it happen?
Then, this week, investigators searched the home of one of the suspect's relatives, seizing 4 gun safes containing more than 60 additional firearms belonging to Harnden.
At a legal fire.
What is he doing with all of those firearms? See, what is all of that stockpiling of weapons? Now, for some of y'all might be too young to remember the whole David Cres situation and why ATF went and fool with them. The reason is because it was all about the guns. That's why the ATF was involved. It was about, they didn't like the fact that they were stockpiling weapons. And here's a small little group, and a lot of these neo-Nazi groups, this is how they get their money. So what you are seeing is a bust, but they aren't trying to really elude Well, they're basically really trying to go straight away from the fact of it actually being an organized situation. They're pinning it on one dude. But what do they keep saying? He has a lot of traffic going around his house. So what's the deal with all of these other people? Just the people, his customers were the only people he had buying guns for him? But they're not telling you what he was doing it for.
Arms and the violence that goes with them are problems that we have to address together.
And if Harnden is convicted, he could face life in federal prison. A more detailed timeline of this case up now on KGW.com.
Thank you, Alma.
Wow. So, you have you got that going on, and right now in my city we have a big media push to make a lot of these young junkies, and you'll probably see it in your city because you have a lot of these non-melanated junkies out here who are dropping dead because of these fentanyl pills. And instead of saying that their children are opioid abusers, they're focusing in on it just being an opioid crisis. It's like, well, it's not the drug, is it? Ain't it the people? Ain't that people just more prone to use that drug? Isn't that what they used to say about crack users? Yeah, well, looks no different then, huh? I guess now they can just say it's sickness because it primarily affects their group. And not to mention, there's a lot of drug use that goes over there in Ukraine. So you want a lot of more meth addicts, a lot of speed freak neo-Nazis coming over here. It's what they're trying to push. In the meantime, while their NATO partners are just getting completely screwed. This is one of the reasons why you're seeing all these other people going so hard against our reparations. But it's true. America already showing you as soon as white folks somewhere else in trouble, we'll yank your money. So it ain't got nothing to do with us in the first place. But they still, why do you hate? Nobody is thinking of you. Nobody is thinking of you. They always come over to center themselves in the conversation. So I see this is all about reparations for FBA. So I have a question. Why do you hate black? Why do you hate Africans? What? Dude. The hell are you talking about? And now we also have another issue we have to point out because a lot of y'all Biden-sexuals, I got to touch this real quick. Y'all going to have to get this lesson through y'all head, man. This does not benefit foundational Black Americans. And that woman that y'all keep calling black, she's the one helping behind this little move that you're about to see right here.
Chairman Padilla, Ranking Member Cornyn, and members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to share my story. My name is Atulya Rajkumar. I'm a recent graduate of the University of Texas at Austin. I am also a member of Improve the Dream, a youth-led organization that supports and advocates for over 200,000 young immigrants who grow up in the United States with a documented status but face self-deportation after aging out of the immigration system. I am a documented dreamer. I was born in India, and when I was 4 and my brother was 6, my mother left an abusive marriage in search of a better life for us. After graduating from San Jose State University, she secured a full-time job and was able to acquire a work visa. Eventually, in 2012, she was able to apply for her green card with me and my brother as her dependents. After nearly a decade in the green card backlog, I aged out in January of 2020 when I turned 21. My single mother worked hard to support me and my brother on her own. Things were hard, but still, I remember making happy memories while building our new life, like eating red, white, and blue popsicles on the 4th of July, driving through neighborhoods to look at Christmas lights, and watching my first baseball game at the National Stadium just a few miles from here. These experiences, uniquely American, are not only unforgettable, but a part of who I am today. I learned very young that every aspect of my life would be controlled by my status. I could not participate in my high school's AP French exchange program, even though I was president of the French club, because I could not leave the country and guarantee a return. When I applied to colleges, I was considered an international student, even though I completed 1st to 12th grade in America. I had to answer questions like, what can you contribute to our institution as a resident from your country? I grew up in Seattle. Starbucks was founded there. I didn't know how much more American I could get. I also could not qualify for any federal or university financial aid. Regardless, I worked hard, earned good.
How did I know she was from out here? As soon as she said the driving down the streets to go see the Christmas lights thing, I knew she was from the Northwest. So she's from Seattle. We have something in our city called Peacock Lane. So it's basically a whole 2-block strip set aside for Christmas light, like a Christmas light parade, you know. And then you could go from there. Then you can go to the racetrack, and then you can go do the PRL lights or PRI lights. Then you can go to the zoo, and then you can go do zoo lights. So when she said it's like people come down here for that, I remember that. It's so American. Oh, you're tugging on these folks' strings. She's really appealing to white folks here, family. Let me tell you, this is Starbucks. Stop. What, next you were eating Tillamook cheese too, huh? Oh, cut it. Oh.
Good grades to get direct admission into my dream program at Moody College of Communications Journalism School to pursue my long-term goal of becoming a journalist so I could use my voice to bring awareness to important issues. My brother and I were forced to raise ourselves because my mother was always working, not only to provide for us, but also to retain our visa status. Due to this uncertainty and anxiety, we both faced severe mental health issues, my older brother to a worse extent. He should have been pulled out of school, given proper medication and counseling, and at times I felt he should have been institutionalized. However, as age 4 dependents, we legally needed to be enrolled as full-time students to remain in this country. And though my mother wanted to quit her job and stay home with him, risking her job and risking...
Oh, man, I'm sorry. I just can't do no more of that horse shit. Oh, my God. Okay, so where do I start? Okay, so she did the whole single mother thing. That reminded me, like, did you get that from Good Times? That almost sounded like Penny Mama. Oh, my life. That was sound like Willona. All my life, I had no fight. But you ain't got the patent or the right on scuffling. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my mother was so sick. And due from the stresses of being a single mother, we had to raise ourselves. Shut up. Shut up. Is she coming over here to like really trying to do that to us? If you don't get out of here. Oh, and then, you know, from all of that stress and trauma, man, you know, we both had mental issues, and mine felt like my brother needed to be committed. Okay, so if that was the worst of your trauma here, what I don't understand is how on earth do you see these black folks that are already here? How do you perceive these people here? I mean, because on the real, you said get to the point. Yeah, no, that was her point. She was getting to that's the point. See, she's making an excuse for dreamers by using, instead of now saying, our plight is just like black people's. Now they're just taking that part off and then going straight to the meat of black life. So my mother was a single mother, and does that sound familiar from another Hindu mother that may have a child that is vice president? Sound familiar? Oh, my single mother. I mean, it's literally the same. It's literally the same line as the Kamala Harris story. Man, she just got a brother versus a sister. Oh, the mental anguish. Cut it out. Lord. So again, this is another reason why, no, we don't share our table with no one. I mean, we are, if you have seats, you got delegated seats, right? So our seat is this one, and we firmly sitting in that. We are just now identifying it. And notice, everybody wants to come around us trying to tell us who we are or who we are not. And for me, I don't get into a bunch of, like I said, the word black, oh man, and you start to get into the plebiscite babble. We can't do that. And you definitely don't want to get into prison babble. See, that's one thing. I done been to prison, but I talked this shit for 20 years. So that's the difference when you have really got your stuff authentically from the grassroots and the good old fashioned school of hard knocks. They help you learn some things. So one of the things that happened today, which I guess, they felt happy, they threw Negro some crumbs again, the Crown Act. Because in 2022, we should have to be concerned about someone discriminating against us because of how our hair grows out of our hair naturally. Now, no problem. You'll be shamed if you talk about the wrong group of people. But you need a law to keep black folks from being harassed about their hair. Brittany Griner got braids, don't she? Mark Lamont Hill, I'm going to need you to keep the word black off of Brittany Griner. When you're talking about protect black women, she has a whole marriage. See, like, I protect black women. This one. That's how that works. All of that line about, I don't need this, I don't need this. This means protection. You see how simple that works? Don't you let these people tell you no garbage out here about what you don't need, because then all of a sudden when you get yourself in a situation, you realize what you actually do. What they say is better to have one than not need it. Better stop listening to these people who love to be in misery. Because what they say about misery, it loves company. So with the Brittany Griner situation, I'm going to say this. I'm going to need them LGBT women that always got some anti-black man and all of them black feminists. This is your bag, baby. Don't ask us for shit. We too busy over here being misogynists and patriarchy, being white supremacists to the black community. Oh, and what else? Homophobic and transphobic and whatever else phobic you want to throw on us. Yeah, we too busy with that. I mean, because y'all never too busy to dump on the black man. Never too busy to dump on the black man. Hey, man. Listen, you're up. Don't wait for us. No, this is all y'all. I mean, we won't stop it. I mean, but this is going to be you. Why ain't y'all said the same reason why we didn't step up for Jesse? What that got to do with us? See, the one thing that both communities have done on both sides, y'all kept trying to annex blackness. And then when you get in trouble, y'all just black. Oh, no, I need that annex part to show up now, too. Because if you're going to cape for them and come at us about how we show this and we're not supported, then let's see them people support you now. How dare you sit up here and talk to your strong like we are less than strong, and we're wrong for being strong. Because in moments like this, who you calling? The weak? No. Sometimes people just need to learn the hard way to shut your ass up. But if you still just so fond of Zaddy that any little tidbit of gifts that they can throw you, well, hold on. Don't do that. Hold on. Let me show you this real quick.
Or the House of Representatives, the People's House, to declare that black girls with our braids, locks, afros, all forms of natural hairstyles, and yes, even our smooth alopecia bald heads belong everywhere. Today, we take an important step towards codifying this fact into law by passing the Crown Act legislation. I'm so proud to co-lead in partnership with Representatives Watson, Coleman, Moore, Lee, and Omar. For too long, black girls have been discriminated against and criminalized for the hair that grows on our heads and the way we move through and show up in this world. In my home state, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, two twin sisters, Deanna and Maya, high school students, were disciplined for showing up with braids. They were given numerous detentions, kicked off the track team, banned from prom solely for their hairstyle. In their own words, these scholars and athletes were judged more for their heritage than their homework. No more. For those sisters and thousands of other students who face discrimination based on their hair, the Crown Act is for you. For recent graduates who fear they must change their hair or cut their locks to secure a job, the Crown Act is for you. For our elders who have faced and fought this racism for generations, the Crown Act is for you. Just yesterday, the Massachusetts State Legislature made history by passing similar legislation. By passing the Crown Act today, we affirm, say it loud, black is beautiful and so is our hair. Whether you are a student in a classroom, an employee in the workplace, or the next Supreme Court justice or the Speaker pro tem, you deserve to show up as your full self, rocking your crown with your head held high. I urge a yes vote for every person who has been asked to shrink or to apologize simply for the beautiful way with which God made them. I yield back.
We hear so much. This is what really amazes me about this, and I hope I don't offend nobody by what I'm about to say, but I got to say this. You can get your career ruined for misgendering someone. Now, in some people's mind, that whole misgender conversation is even a newfangled thing for them. Being black ain't. Having your hair come out your head is something that was already there for some of us were even born. But in 2022, the state can pay for gender reassignment surgery, but you actually need a law to protect from discrimination about natural black hair. I live in a city where you may walk in, say, Ross, and the greeter got purple hair, dressed like a woman, voice like a man. No big deal. But there has to be a law. In 2022, I just got to wonder what the hell are black people voting for? If this is even a thing today, what progress do you think you've made? What? Did they let you get a little bit of money? You see how fast they go take it away from you when they don't like you no more? Is that winning? I don't think so. No. That sounds like slavery with just a wider boundary. You're just on a plantation and got more goodies. Good for you. But what does that change about the situation overall? Not a damn thing. So damn a Crown Act and damn a lift every voice and sing, making it a national hymn. Reparations and actual legal justice and restorative justice to us and our ancestors, because you know how they always like to throw something 50 years, 70 years down the line after they already done executed a black person, wrongfully so, saying, oh, we'll exonerate them now. Yeah, you already put them to death. So what good is that for us? I mean, empty gestures. If that's what they want us to be involved in. And I'm just not with it no more. I was never with it. And I'm not really willing to tolerate being around people who think like that's okay at this moment. That cannot continue. And I'm telling you where I'm at with it. Nah, if you rocking like that makes sense, you got to get the hell away from me. So, we're going to go right on in to the Queen's sister here. We are at the first hour mark. So let me see you get those likes up. And we are about to get into the celebration of our Queen Mother here. And man, you know, I got a few different clips that I'm gonna let roll and just enjoy this this game from one of the people who were one of the best to do it.
Tick faster. That'll be the hour they knock the slick blaster. Dick dastardly, a Muttley with sick laughter. A gunfight and they come to cut the mix master. And living the true gods. Giving y'all nothing but the lick like two broads. Got more lyrics than the church got ooh lords. And they hold the mic at your attention like two swords. Or you the one with two blades on it. Hey you, don't touch the mic like it's AIDS on it.
People have talked for a long time about equality, to be equal. White people can't be equal to black people because they can't produce melanin pigment. And that's the basis upon which they operate. You see, so again, you know, platitudes and all of that's good, but it doesn't have anything to do with the reality, the specific reality that has caused a problem for people for 500 years plus. See, people are called white or you're non-white. That's on the census. That's the classification. You see, that is the problem. The word white, when it refers to human beings, means genetic deficiency. Mutation, genetic deficiency, inability to produce melanin pigment. It means tiny minority on the planet. Do you see? There's no way around it. It's like an elephant being in a room. And everybody is walking around squeezed up against the wall. But they're not talking about the elephant because they are afraid to talk about the elephant. For whatever reasons. And so the problem is to talk about the elephant. When will the elephant be talked about? See, black people can be genocided. Native American people have been genocided. People can be genocided. See, that's what the young white people who get frustrated and they get a gun and they start shooting large numbers of people, because this is the message of the culture. You have a problem, you're upset about something, then go get your father's gun or your mother's gun and start killing a lot of people. Human life means nothing at this crisis point on this planet unless this specific problem is addressed.
All right. So, I mean, that gives you a real true insight on on the people and the system to which we speak of all the time here. And with that being said, here's some more.
Well, the Cres theory was an attempt back in the late 1960s to explain what I thought is the Cres theory of color confrontation and racism, white supremacy. An attempt to, as a psychiatrist, as a black psychiatrist, to understand, well, what exactly is this thing that we call racism, white supremacy? Looking at why do white people behave in the way that they do. You see, in concluding that it has to do, number one, with their minority status on the planet, their genetic recessive status, in that they could experience genetic annihilation, in that the overwhelming majority of people on the planet are black, brown, red, and yellow, and whites constitute fewer than 1/10 of the people on the planet.
One of the things that we find that is happening now is there's this constant countdown. You see it on the news all the time to when America's a minority nation. So there's still this countdown happening in terms of when white folks will be in the minority.
They will be a majority minority, which is nonsensical. There will be a white minority. If the non-white, if the black, brown, red, and yellow people are here, they will be the majority and whites will be the minority. You see, and it's a illogical statement to talk about a majority minority. I mean, which is like white supremacy. I still have to put myself on top. I have to pose that I am genetically superior to compensate. I say it's a compensation for a genetic recessive status. Well, I think I was the first person to talk about white genetic annihilation in those terms, and that racism is ultimately a total system for white genetic survival and to prevent white genetic annihilation on a planet that has the genetics and the demographics that exist on third planet from the sun, which is planet Earth. So I was the first to put it in those terms, and my thesis has not been refuted. I would say that if my definition is understood, that racism, white supremacy is the fear on the part of people who classify themselves as white about white genetic annihilation and the concern for white genetic survival. This would therefore mean logically and specifically that the focus has to be on black males, because black people have the greatest genetic potential to produce the black pigment melanin, which gives all skin color. And since we have the highest level of genetically determined ability to produce this pigment that can cause white genetic annihilation, and it's only males who can impose sexual intercourse. And so the focus consciously, subconsciously has to zero in on the males. This is why I say that understanding, I'm not talking about institutional racism, I'm talking about a total system construct that develops out of certain patterns of thinking on the part of people who classify themselves as white relative to specific realities that exist on this planet. And so then once that is understood, that the fear of genetic annihilation that takes to the focus on the male, the black male person, as being the number one perceived threat, the number one enemy, and everything flows from that.
All right. And real quickly, I want to chime in on what she's saying about that, because as we see, Black men have been the number one target of violence and also of confusion. And again, if you can go ahead and get the head chasing its tail, then you can always ensure that that thing will be going in circles back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, round and around and around and around, and we go. So when you have situations like that, Louise and Shawana S., welcome. When you have situations like that, they have these think tanks that literally plan years in advance, generations in advance to further their cause of dominance. Because if we fall into, even if they fall into a level, even playing field, they're in trouble. But when you have people who can procreate at the numbers of healthy babies like we can, I mean, I can go on my Instagram. I know y'all, half of y'all probably got all of these black babies halfway, all the way up and down your Instagram. We see them black babies every day. Every day. I see black babies every day on my Instagram because somebody I follow them like this. And they're all different pictures. It ain't like it's the same baby. So, I mean, that lets you know we in a different situation when people's numbers are dwindling. My Facebook page or my Instagram page is full. Folks is flourishing like a bug out here. Let's just keep it real. Z-Nay J, welcome. And, you know, I mean, we have had, matter of fact, I just came across a story recently that this older couple, I think this sister like 56, and she dropped her first kid at 56. Now, I'm sure that was first and last. But, man, yeah, was able to pull that one off. I mean, so what that say? At 56, yeah, we in a different situation, and you gotta be for certain that her husband is that much older than her. So I think he's in his 60s. I think he's like 64. So what that tell you? Oh man, we could keep cranking them out. We could keep cranking them out. Oh man, so that is a cold mountain to climb, baby. when you got black folks doing that, black folks that's a high hill to climb.
You have to understand specifically what you're dealing with. And without the specific understanding, there cannot be. This is just like in a war. Until you understand the exact nature of the war, what is the war fundamentally about? You can't really.
All right. Well, you know, looks like StreamYard is doing its thing again. So I have to do my little reset here. I don't know why. Thought using a different program would work, but again, I see
it is a StreamYard situation. Well, as I'm waiting for this to either reload or just reboot. Oh Lord. We will go from here, and it's all gravy. Matter of fact, I can put this on the screen, so let me do that because y'all can hear me just fine. So we will rock like that. Let me go ahead. I'm still getting this set back up, and we will be back in the studio with the rest of the videos shortly. But in the meantime, when people are facing annihilation, like they're facing it here, and that's not even a man-made problem for them. That's just a nature-made problem. I mean, but when you have people who naturally hate nature, which I guess if you wanted to know what type of person hates nature, that would probably be the person most likely to want to block out the sun. Anybody know anybody like that? Anybody know anybody that has suggested the idea of blocking out the sun? You know what's funny? We heard one of these dudes. He was on Tariq's broadcast, right? And he's a white dude. He's like, oh yeah, well, yeah, me being in the sun, it actually works for me, man. I'm like, no, it really doesn't. Well, no, if you're white, like being in it kind of works better. All right, we gonna get in here and let's see if this is working. Let me get on in here. Okay, so what are you looking like? Let's turn that down. There we go. There we go.
All right. Wrong one. Okay, let me get on that there. There we go. So let me get this video back in here. I don't know what that is. And family, the weird thing is, it ain't just me. It ain't just me that goes through this. I don't know what that's about. I really wish these people get their stuff together on that, though. Let's see. I believe this is the one I was playing last. Hopefully this is it. Let's make sure.
You have to understand specifically what you're dealing with. And without the specific understanding, there cannot be. This is just like in a war. Until you understand the exact nature of the war, what is the war fundamentally about, you can't really design strategies and tactics. And so we are not going to be able, this is why if we look back, things look worse today than they did 50 years ago. You see, because we're not dealing with an analysis. We're dealing with, telling people not to kill each other. We're not dealing because we're not allowed to talk specifically about racism, white supremacy. My purpose as a psychiatrist in talking about this and making an analysis of what we are specifically dealing with is like any other thing in medicine, that you don't just deal with the symptoms of a problem. You have to wonder, well, what is the disease base that the symptoms are a reflection of? And what we have is blocking a discussion, any in-depth discussion of racism, white supremacy. I mean, I'm the only psychiatrist in the United States that has been talking about racism, white supremacy for 40 plus years. I'm the only psychiatrist in the world that is talking about it. Do you see? Because it's like there's a block on, we are not going to talk about, we can talk about the symptoms, we can have all kind of people come on TV and talk about the symptoms, but we are not going to talk about the problem of racism, white supremacy, because that's the behavior on the part of people who classify themselves as white. And so they have a wall of protection, a steel iron curtain around that specific discussion that gets into what is the white responsibility for the behavior activity that we see on the planet. But I say that those people who are sincerely interested in solving the problem, they have to go in depth to the analysis. And when the Attorney General said, "Are we a nation of cowards?" being unable to talk about racism, and the answer to that has to be yes, we are a nation of cowards, but we can try to find the courage. If I could wave a magic wand, you see, you would have many people who classify themselves as white having the courage to talk about it, as well as black people and other groups of pigmented people being able to talk about this. But there are consequences to be paid, do you see, for going into this no man's land, or where this is not supposed to be discussed. But we are not going to be healthy, functional people, mentally healthy people, until this can take place.
And I cannot disagree. So that was probably more recent, before she closer to her passing. And of course, you know, very, very powerful message, as always. But, you know, of course, we have more, because this is a celebration. For those who do not know, today is the birthday of Dr. Frances Cres Welsing. She is one of the Hall of Famers when it comes to this, what people like to call woke culture. I'm talking about, like, this is one of the people who has broke it down to a science, broke it down into a psyche, broke the psyche down, and has broadened a lot of people's horizons of understanding. At the same time, they've also tried to discredit her as well. So make sure, and here's, you know, if y'all don't understand how things actually seem to work, you know, the system has often tended to starve our scholars out. So a lot of our scholars in the grassroots black, the B1 type of, before it was a grassroots B1, this system made a point to starve these people out. And so with that being said, you know, their message has definitely always kept life going. And thanks to Tariq Nasheed being able to showcase a lot of these old scholars who were doing stuff way back in the 70s and 80s and even in the 90s, and a lot of them were retired, to bring them back out with their expertise and to get it on capture and on video. I know a lot of people will be like, "Oh, that's irrelevant, and what difference does a documentary make?" Well, can you honestly say that you would have this many people in this space wanting to hear about positive black information if it wasn't for the access? Because see, for me, I grew up with this type of stuff. So, like with Hidden Colors, you know, most of the stuff that came out in Hidden Colors, I was already well aware of. But I grew up that way. A lot of people haven't. They haven't had the opportunity to have all of that understanding and knowledge, or even meet certain people who were parts of certain movements. You know what I'm saying? So when you get a chance to get it on video, man, that just goes a long way. And then at the end of the day, they starved our sister out. And Tariq Nasheed actually paid for her funeral. So for those who don't know, you know, that's one of the things that has been done. I know a lot of people, you know, have negative things to say about our brother, but ain't put in on that one. So, you know, I mean, it is what it is. I know people don't like to, you know, if you're going to say this dude's this dude's that, well, then you might also make sure to mention this in all fairness. Also, he also helped with Tamir Rice's funeral as well. So I'm just saying, these are things that might be mentioned. Bailing people out, him, Jason Black, getting folks out of jail, getting charges dropped. I don't understand what people want. See, everybody has a role to play. We need to get out of this one Messiah thing. This type of teaching was to build a community of thinkers. Not all of this information to just go into one person in 2022 that one person's going to speak. No. These people, man, I'm telling you, y'all better get off of that, because what they want you to do is find you a leader, call them a leader, and then put everything, all the eggs in their basket, and then they'll blow his head off. Or her, or the or they, which will go from the, them, he, her, she, shim, or whatever you may call, to used to be. That would be your title. Used to be. Used to be R.I.P. Yeah, you can keep those pronouns. Deceased. No thanks. See, that's the whole thing. Just the code is what you need to get on. Now, if you want to know the elements of the code, our great Dr. Frances Cres Welsing is giving you the information you need to understand. So if you have any elements that are in the way of these, rid yourself of them immediately.
Good evening and welcome to For the People and the second part of our conversation with psychiatrist Dr. Frances Cres Welsing on white racism.
Now, in different parts of the country, when I go around and speak, I will ask, white people, do you want your children to be colored? Do you want your grandchildren to be colored? Do you want your great-grandchildren? Do you want your great-great-grandchildren to be colored? And they say no. So I say, well, if you don't want that to happen, you have to be engaging in certain specific behaviors. Do you see? So that issue about genetic annihilation does not occur. And this is what we experience, do you see, as black people, as non-white.
And they should be engaged in what activities?
Excuse me?
They should be engaged in
All right. Are we there again? Okay, so what StreamYard actually did was freeze me out of this too. So yes, we are now for certain that it is StreamYard, and StreamYard, yes, we know it's you. So we no longer have to play any guessing games if it's YouTube or StreamYard. No, it is StreamYard, which is in cahoots. Because I got three different devices right here, and I could not get into my StreamYard. And as soon as I went on here, on this device right here, oh, this froze too. Somehow froze my entire device. I never seen that happen before. And I don't know how I go from computer to phone. And all right, there we go. Now you can see. Let's see. We're there. I almost
don't even want to close this.
All right.
Yeah, let me mute that. You know what? I'm gonna move that off the stage. That's what we gonna do. I'm just gonna keep that right there. Yeah, we'll just do it that way. How about that, StreamYard? I ain't even gonna close it now. Good grief. Can y'all hear me? Let me leave all this madness they got me going through. Boy. See what I have to go through to get this truth out? Lord.
Good evening and welcome to For the People and the second part of our conversation with psychiatrist Dr. Frances Cres Welsing on white racism.
Now, in different parts of the country, when I go around and speak, I will ask, white people, do you want your children to be colored? Do you want your grandchildren to be colored? Do you want your great-grandchildren? Do you want your great-great-grandchildren to be colored? And they say no. So I say, well, if you don't want that to happen, you have to be engaging in certain specific behaviors. Do you see? So that issue about genetic annihilation does not occur. And this is what we experience, do you see, as black people, as non-white.
And they should be engaged in what activities? They should be engaged in what?
That black people should be engaged?
No, I thought you were saying the whites.
I'm saying that the white, do you see, we keep running into, wait a minute, there's a wall. Let's say it might be a black man trying to matriculate in a job situation, and he finds I can only go this far. And then I run into this invisible wall. And people might say, oh, no, we're not discriminating. But the black person knows that wall is there. They keep hitting the wall, do you see? Or they're eliminated, or it's just like looking, how we're looking at the Supreme Court decisions that have recently come about. Do you see? Oh, wow, they're now going back to the old way of doing things. The door opened a little bit, and now the door has to slam back, do you see? And we feel that pressure. And this is what we say, well, racism is going on, do you see? But the white response would say, oh, nothing is happening.
Now, if more African Americans and Africans around the world were to begin to look at white supremacy in the manner that you have outlined, what would it mean in terms of how we respond to white supremacy as opposed to, quote, that traditional?
Well, that's why we have this chessboard here.
All right.
Because I say that the behavioral dynamic of white supremacy is analogous to a chess game. We haven't looked at it in that way before. See, we've looked at it, everybody hold hands, ring around the rosy, we're all in this together, and found that, wait a minute, that's not what's happening. That if we understand the game of chess, where you have a white side of the chessboard and you have a black side of the chessboard, when people sit down to play chess, because I'm not talking about hating white people, I am talking about analyzing the behavior, but I'm not talking about hating them, I'm not talking about destroying white people. But I am talking about understanding this the so-called game of chess. Now, if we look further at the chess game, that in the game of chess for the last 100 years, the game has been played where white always moves first. So that the white side of the chessboard is playing offense, defense. The black side of the chessboard has to play defense, offense. So I say that that's a perfect analogy to white supremacy. White supremacy has to move against non-white people for the purpose of white genetic survival, do you see? And also the game of chess is about checkmating the king. You see, with white moving offensively and then defensively, that means that the real issue in the game of chess is about the white king checkmating the black king. And I say that that is perfectly analogous to racism, white supremacy, because the primary thrust of the attack of racism, white supremacy, it's against all black people or all non-white people, but it is most specifically against the black male, because it is the black male who can cause white genetic annihilation. Do you see? And so the game of chess is about the white king checkmating the black king. Mm-hmm. And so I say that if we begin to say, oh, it's like the game of chess. You see, and black people say, oh, we didn't understand that. Mm-hmm. Oh, now we can play, because it's just a matter of tactics and strategy. And I go further, you know, to look at the chessboard as though each of these columns, each of the vertical columns on the chessboard, we really need 9. Mm-hmm. And if we looked at it, one column represents economics, another economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And so you have to play on those 9 fronts simultaneously, which is just like playing chess. You don't play on just one column. You have to play and look at all of the columns at the same time. Uh-huh. Do you see? And so if we now begin to say, oh, we understand the dilemma of the white minority on the planet, that they are actually operating in fear of white genetic annihilation, you see, and the intention then being to survive, white genetic survival by any necessary means, and I mean any necessary means.
Y'all catch that part, family? By any necessary means. Most definitely using your women against your men, your homosexuals against the straight, the old against the young. Do you understand?
Any necessary means. Then black people can begin to say, oh, okay. That means that we have to have tactics and strategies for, you see, black survival and maximal development. In the presence of this continuous onslaught, we will give up completely, you see, begging and pleading, that all of that energy, like 90% of our energy as black people in this area of the world, is being spent begging and pleading. You see, but that would be analogous to the person who is playing the black side of the chessboard begging the white side to let them win. Do you see? So if you're playing the black side of the chessboard and you start asking the white side to let you make some points, they ought to take you to the nearest mental hospital. That's not the way the game is played. You see, the same thing with basketball, the same thing with football.
And is that why we're back now to the Supreme Court going back and undoing?
Right. Well, that, you see, I say that it's that cycle. In other words, white supremacy, you can look at it as Mr. Neely Fuller does, as, you know, having 4 phases: establishment, maintenance, expansion, and refinement. And so after you go into refinement, you have to go back to establishment.
So what do you think of the goal of equality?
Well, I think that the issue about equality, the dynamic of racism as I have analyzed it, and white supremacy, is coming about because people feel unequal Do you see? People feel, well, somebody else has a dominant genetic trait that can cause my genetic annihilation. And so that's the game that's on the table. And so equality, do you see, you cannot establish equality when you have that dynamic going on of somebody feeling, I have to have everything, or I have to be in charge, either because I'll be genetically annihilated or because I feel genetically inadequate. I have to try to balance that out by having all of the money, all of the jobs, all of the houses, all of the things that are decent. Do you see? And I can only feel balanced out if I'm looking at the people who I really looked at as genetically dominant to me, if I can reduce them to a state of inferiority, and then I can say, see, I'm superior. Now that's the dilemma. And I have said, when I wrote the paper, The Cres Theory of Color Confrontation, I said the challenge to white behavioral, it's a challenge, or the challenge to white behavioral scientists, to help the white population locally and globally become comfortable with its color and its minority status in the world.
How do you do that?
Well, first of all, by talking about it. Do you see? But this is a topic that you cannot talk about. I mean, you should take an A and 1,000 gold stars for having, airing this kind of discussion. This is a discussion that you cannot bring out. Do you see? If you are a black person trying to talk about racism, you can lose a job. Oh, she's always talking about racism. Do you see? No, we don't want to talk about racism. We certainly don't want to analyze it, because if we analyze it, then, do you see, one can get rid of white supremacy.
And ain't that the truth? And they don't want that. See, if you can achieve getting rid of white supremacy, then you have now created the ultimate problem. I guess this is one of the reasons, maybe that's why we have so much trouble on tonight's broadcast, because they don't want this one to come out. So, but without further ado, before they get to me again, on to the next.
I have said, when I wrote the paper, The Cres Theory of Color Confrontation, I said the challenge to white behavioral, it's a challenge, or the challenge to white behavioral scientists, to help the white population locally and globally become comfortable with its color and its minority status in the world.
How do you do that?
Well, first of all, by talking about it. Do you see? But this is a topic that you cannot talk about. I mean, you should take an A and 1,000 gold stars for having, airing this kind of discussion. This is a discussion that you cannot bring out. Do you see? If you are a black person trying to talk about racism, you can lose a job. Oh, she's always talking about racism. Do you see? No, we don't want to talk about racism. We certainly don't want to analyze it, because if we analyze it, then, do you see, one can get rid of white supremacy. For example, if all of the non-white people on the planet begin to understand the dynamic of white supremacy will come to a stop. Do you see? Because one of the plays, tactically, strategically, on the chessboard of white supremacy is a minority survives in the presence of a majority by dividing and conquering. You see, pit this group of black people against that group of black people. You see, which is reminiscent of the current discussion that goes something like this. The black middle class is not interested in the black underclass. Do you see? Divide and conquer. Do you see? Get the black side of the chessboard, so to speak, warring against these pieces, warring against one another, as opposed to looking at the white side of the chessboard. And I'm sure that they have plays like that in football, do you see, where you kind of cause confusion on the other team's side so that they are not able to score and make the play.
Let me just interject the Chinese student situation in this and get your reaction to that in terms of this divide and conquer thing. I think you'd mentioned this to me in a conversation, how you saw the Chinese student thing.
Well, for sure, I wasn't in Peking.
Right,
Beijing.
right.
So I don't really know, but just making an analysis from this point of view of understanding white supremacy, I said that if there were persons who classified themselves as white, and they're looking all over the globe, and they're looking, oh my God, you know, the major economic activity in the world today is occurring in Asia. Now we've got this, you know, Japanese economic colossus, and what if they were able to link up with the 1 billion Chinese people and they started trading together? What will happen to us? The yellow hordes might be getting together. Well, can we cause some confusion? Now that would just be my analysis. I don't know. Do you see? But it seems very interesting to me that a short time ago, do you see, China opened its doors, and then now you have all of this confusion, and you have the Chinese students putting up, do you see.
I want to point out something real quick, like what she's saying. What she is giving you kind of the foreground of what we're seeing right now, about to push back against reparations, because if we are in a different economical position, then we change global economic ecosystem. So yeah, let's see, just from then to now, we in the same fight, family. So let's not get distracted by the John Lewis doctrine. We can't love everybody, and then everybody can't go. Sorry, ain't gonna happen.
Statue that looked to me, I mean, white styrofoam. You see, it wasn't a yellow styrofoam. You see, so I don't know. I don't know who has been talking to the Chinese students. Do you see, well, your leaders are too oppressive, and so therefore you must, you know, move against them. I mean, these are, you know, these are the kinds of moves that are made throughout history. So I just raised that question, is that what happened? Because I certainly know that that dynamic constantly goes on amongst black people, do you see, or the relationships of whites towards black, that divide and conquer. Well, do you know that Frances, that Listervelt was talking about you the other day in the office? Do you see? Now that prevents Frances and Listervelt, do you see, from seeing that they have a common interest. And again, I'm not talking about hate, do you see, but I'm just talking about understanding power dynamics and power configurations and certain kinds of power configurations under certain kinds of circumstances that will occur on our planet.
Why is it that, say, with the European community can come together and nobody even introduces the idea of hate? Why is it that when this kind of discussion is being held, people have to be very careful? Say that,
well,
you know,
it's the same. Do you see? Well, if they're talking about getting out from under white supremacy oppression, they must be talking about hating us. And I say that that comes from that deeper fear they can harm us.
Now, does that make you understand why you would want a bunch of neo-Nazis from Ukraine with no ties to patriotic America coming here? Just think about it.
Do you see? And they can harm us, even goes to someone like Dr. Martin Luther King, who was talking about peace and nonviolence. Do you see? He was looked upon as a troublemaker and a violent man. He was subsequently killed by a white male. Do you see? And all he was talking about was love. Now I say again, if everybody loved on the planet, white would disappear. Do you see? And so therefore he has to be attacked. And so this fear that I maintain, for the most part, I do not hear white behavioral scientists or white social scientists in any way addressing what is going on in the white psyche. Do you see? So that one of the things in psychiatry, the job of the psychiatrist is making that which is subconscious, bringing it to conscious attention. You see, for example, a psychiatrist might try to help a man who's having difficulty getting along with his wife, do you see, and so they're arguing all the time. That the psychiatrist might say, well, you know, tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your relationship with your mother and with your father. Do you see? And let's say if the mother was punitive towards the child. Now the child represses that pain. But then when the child is now an adult and goes to relate to his wife, he can't get along with his wife. Do you see? Because of the identification. Do you see? If somebody's going to do me harm. Do you see? And so you help the person become aware of material that they have repressed. Now, I believe that, you know, if you say, well, what is the origin of the white supremacy system? I go all the way back to Africa, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, because, you know, even, you know, now, the white anthropologists and paleontologists are now agreeing that human life began in Africa, and the first people were black. Now, I knew that the first people had to be black. Why? Because you can only, see, black can produce all of the colors. I can have a child that is an albino mutant, which would then be white. You see, blonde hair, blue eyes, white. If I produced an albino mutant, you see, I can also produce black. White can only produce white. So white could not have produced all of the colors on the planet. You see, and white being a genetic recessive trait. So only black people could have produced all the colors. And once you produce a mutation to albinism and you mix those together, then you have all the colors on the planet, which is why if somebody looked at the population in this area of the world that is called black, you will see all of the colors in the human family. You will.
A word real quick that you heard that she said Albion, like New Albion, which there is a group they're trying to push that, New Albion. And for those of you who've also heard that, you have heard that in, Peter Vasco's book, Avoid the Machines. So you've heard that enough. That is where you heard it. So it's a real thing, family. It is just real, okay? Real.
See all of the appearances of everybody in the human family in simply the American population that is called, you know, what we call American in this area of the world. You'll see somebody that is, you know, in terms of their physical appearance, representative of everybody. And that has come about as a combination of mixing, you see, the African with the European genetic types, okay?
You have said that whites are not always conscious of their racist behavior. What do you mean by this, and should it matter to black people? Should it matter to us whether this racist behavior is conscious or not?
Well, people often ask that, you know, if I jumped out of this chair and went over and slapped you, you see, there might be subconscious determinants. You see? But your issue is, wait a minute, Francis, you slapped me, you see, and I have to, you know, I can't permit that behavior to go on. Now we can, you know, after I stop you, I can help you deal with why. But your position is that it must stop, you see. And so
So are you catching that, family? You did not hear the love doctrine come out of her mouth whatsoever. No, the human nature is going to be, oh Lord. Oh yeah, I heard about that. Is that on the East Coast? So yeah, what she said though, you have to deal with your problems. So somebody wants to get slapped, then you deal with it and help fix it and rectify it. But you know, if you have to immediately address something, then sometimes that's just how things have to be, you know, to restore order. Let me see, what am I reading right here? Let's see. And everyone in the chat, please pray for Desmond Works. He is taking cover due to a tornado warning. What? Uh-oh. So it looks like a tornado. Oh yeah, okay. So it looks like that southern region. You said you good? I'm inside of my work building. Okay. Looks like there's a little southern storm going on, huh? Well, yeah, man, y'all definitely shelter in place until the safest moment till you can make you a great escape. I know my son had an incident at his job. I guess they had to stay a little late last night because they were shooting. Somebody was shooting out there, not at his business, but in the vicinity. So just as a precaution, just went ahead and hung out there. So yes, let's get back to our good sister here.
Said before, I don't know of anybody that is helping the white population on the planet. You see, really focus on and look at and think about white supremacy behavior, but that again stands to reason. You see, that whole white supremacy dynamic that is now global evolved as a protective system of behavior for the purpose of white genetic survival.
Hence, all of this Ukraine love. Black folks, stop worrying about yourselves and pray for Ukraine. This ain't about no humanitarianism. It's about white supremacy. Regardless of whatever they tell you. And we can't feel bad for little bad babies getting blown up and Is there a family member in your family right now that you ain't spoke to in a minute? That you still hate their guts? But you more willing to sit up here and pray for Ukraine? You pray for your community? You pray for them young boys that you always say ain't shit? But you praying for neo-Nazis in Ukraine? Yeah. All right. Just let that sink in.
Do you really think that helping whites see the root cause of racism
is going to stop it?
It's going to stop it, right?
I don't really think so. You see, I could wish and hope that it would, but at a perhaps a more analytical level or scientific level, if a person constructs a survival modality, you see, then chances are they're going to play that out. I think that the answer is going to come about because black people and other non-white people begin to understand, I see, it's just like, just like playing chess. You say, I see they went into that opening, they're going to go into thus and so, you see, system of moves. And so from the black side, then the blacks would evolve patterns of behavior that would put that destructive behavior in check. You see, for example, black people can, by understanding white supremacy, they can consciously move into no squabbling and fighting amongst one another. You see, because if non-white people on the planet, just imagine, if non-white people on the planet Earth tomorrow morning stopped fighting each other, white supremacy would come to an end. Do you see, but that...
I'm going to rewind that real quick because I'm going to make this point very clear. See, those of us in the new black media, that part we understand very, very, very quite clearly. Let me make it clear. Not everybody gets along all the time, always. The point is, Twitter, YouTube, and all of these other public places are public places not ran by us. The reason why none of you take that to melanated people or to 6 zeros, because that's a place of upliftment and empowerment, and it's not the place for mess. Well, if you wouldn't do it there, you keep yourself to the same standard on their platform. But you've gotten so ingratiated with it being okay of throwing other folks that look like you under the bus on platforms of people that don't look like you, while calling them a coon or saying they're off call. This happens all too often. And now we're having whole black think tanks on Twitter. Like I will stress again, if you're going to be a legitimate think tank, gather your people and go get you a Telegram group or something like that, one of these offline apps, and you start building that way. But all of this being on Front Street is hella off code. I just got to say that part, let alone from all the other beefing. That go without saying, because at this stage in the game, what the hell you got time beefing with another black person for? So anybody doing that right now just doesn't make sense to begin with. But even further the length, let's just make sure we do not spend so much time on their platforms giving them our thinking information. If you want to back and forth with outsiders, then that's the place for it. But once you have your inside crew, you need to start taking that conversation off script, because y'all doing way too much with this. I mean, you telegraphing every last one of your moves. Let me tell you, y'all are telegraphing everything doing that. So you notice how certain people ain't in them spaces, and then you'll see a strategic placement of folks showing up in spaces. You ain't gonna see me in there every day. I guarantee you that. And you ain't seen me in there like that. So, and there's a reason. But I'm giving you the reason. But I've been around long enough. I've seen so many things come and go. I kind of unfortunately see Twitter Spaces as a fad. But one thing that we have to understand, if it's not, and if it's going to be something that flourishes, keep your squabbling offline. Don't tag nobody's name in nothing. Don't blow up nobody's page. Don't blow up nobody's organization. If they look like you, keep it out of the public. Stop having think tanks in public. That's the best thing I can stress to you. Because trust me, what y'all are doing is giving these people a blueprint on infiltration. Vet everyone. That's why I tell you this. And one of the things that she is saying we're going to have to adopt is how to stop squabbling. So this is the chess move. If you get us squabbling, you are already moving us in disarray. So just take what I'm saying right there. Take what the sister's saying, and we're going to keep rolling.
Constantly pitting one group of non-whites against another. You see North Korea, South Korea, North Vietnam, South Vietnam, all the squabbles in Lebanon, all the different units in Africa fighting, all the people in Central America fighting each other. Now that is how, do you see, that's one major way in which white supremacy is being maintained. But see, there are a lot of very deep issues. For example, once white supremacy is established, as we have it now in this area of the world, let's just look, so that I turn on my television and let's say I could be a black child. The television is turned on and I see white, 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 white. I never see an image of myself as a black child. Do you see? Or I might see an image of myself if I'm a black male child and I'll have a hat turned on backwards and my eyes will be bucked looking up. Do you see what I'm saying? Those are images of inadequacy. And so the very television is teaching me to hate myself and to admire what it is that I see. Do you see? Where I go to school.
Family, I just got to, what does she say? it just made me think of this.
Money.
I mean, when she says, with your eyes bucked.
Money.
Oh, Lord.
And I open the textbook and I'm in the first grade. Or in kindergarten, I open up the textbook. Or in nursery school, and I'm looking at the little bunnies. Do you see? And they're all white. Do you see? I don't see anything that is dignifying black. Do you see? If I learn the English language, or if I learn any language in the white supremacy system and culture, do you see? That's French, English, all of the languages that are spoken by people who classify themselves as white, do you see, use black as the major pejorative. Do you see? The stock market falls, and then we call that Black Monday or Tuesday. Black people didn't have anything to do with it. Do you see? Or if white people are engaging in demeaning, degrading sexual activities, they will call it kinky. Do you see? Well, that's supposed to be what black people do. Black people won't even know about any such sexual practices. Do you see? So all kinds of negativity is dumped around the word black, so that when a black person learns that language, they are really learning self-hate. And as they learn self-hate, and as they look at the movies and look at the television and look at the magazines and look at the newspaper, do you see? They're learning to hate black. And so then I go to relate to you, do you see, as a black person. And so my behavior has got to be destructive until I consciously begin to understand more objectively about what is happening, do you see? And then I say, even in the presence of the white supremacy dynamic, I will to respect myself and to love myself and highly regard myself as a black person. And I will, meaning I'm going to take conscious, disciplined control over my behavior and relate to other black people in a constructive manner.
Okay, we're going to move on a little further down the road on this, but what role do poor whites play in the white supremacy structure?
Unfortunately, it's TV, so he had to hurry up and get to the other part. But really, truthfully, I wouldn't have harped on any of that, because no. See, here's the thing. I'm sure the host is doing his job. You try to figure out how it relates to white folks. But truth be told, what she just gave, that wasn't for them. That little tidbit of information, that was not for them. So I hope, that y'all just receive what she just said, because now let's see how the allies, what we should expect from our so-called liberal allies. Let's check this out.
Well, do you see, you have white people with higher incomes and white people with lower incomes, and they can all come together and practice white supremacy. I think I remember hearing something about George Wallace. And, I'm remembering, and so it may not be totally accurate, but I think it's accurate enough. He said that when he first went into politics in the state of Alabama, that he thought that the chance for the poor white person would be to come together with black people, to see common cause, to improve education, improve health, improve housing, improve roads and whatnot. And he said he found out that the white persons were not interested necessarily. Do you see, that was not a priority interest. The priority interest was to feel that they were better than black people. Do you see, now that I understand that in terms of white genetic survival, because that.
Now, real quickly, let's take a flashback on our teaching here. And like she said, remember this part.
Bringing the children into it any more than we have to. We're doing it for the children, but I don't feel that they are old enough to understand the problem as it is.
Do you think a Negro family moving here will affect the community as a whole?
Definitely.
In what way?
I think that, well, the property values will immediately go down if they are allowed to move in here in any number.
And what of the dream of middle-class respectability? If a Negro family can afford what you can afford, how do you justify your feeling of superiority? What other objections?
See, feeling of superiority. That is a concession of inferiority. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe our sister's wrong. But, you know, she's a doctor. She's a doctorate. She studies. She's a psychiatrist. I'll go with the professional opinion. The professional medical opinion. Whoops.
It was true not only for the low-income white person, it was also true for the upper-income white person. So I don't make those distinctions, do you see, and say, well, okay, lower-income white people are so-called bad, and then, you know, upper-income white people are not. No, across the economic spectrum.
How did the attempted Jewish extinction in Germany help you in your analysis of white supremacy?
Well, I'll tell you, you know, this is, I think, very interesting history. I went to Antioch College in Yellow Springs, Ohio as an undergrad. And my parents, when I graduated in 1957, my parents said, what do you want for graduation? And I said, send me to Germany. That was 12 years after the end of the Second World War. I said, send me to Germany, because I wanted to live with German people and ask them, did you know what you were doing to your neighbors? You see, so my parents sent me to Germany. And I lived in Germany and would talk to German people and would ask them. And all the German people, you know, they were nice. Frances, come and live in our house. So that was a very, very important kind of information, that people could be nice on the surface, do you see, but they could destroy their neighbor. It was only later that I kept saying, well, what does this term, what does anti-Semitism mean? What does this term Semite really mean? If you look in the dictionary, the word Semite, they say somebody who speaks a Semitic language, but, you know, every third grader knows you don't define a word with the same word. And so I thought about that word because I consider myself a student of what happened in Germany. Read everything about what was that behavior about.
So there is a brief, yeah, not so, you know, brief, but a piece of, I guess that was a little over an hour, of Dr. Frances Cres Welsing giving her own views and vantage points, giving straight up truth as it is. And as it still is. She's passed in 2016, and I mean, what is she saying that, you know, which was so many years prior? What's missing today? It's all hidden. So, you know what? We got some time. I think I'm gonna play this other one because y'all remember for those who have been with me for a while, I guess this would be my second celebration of Dr. Welsing on this broadcast. So we played her lambasting Richard Spencer's predecessor last year. And I think since we got some time, y'all want to see that? Y'all want to see that again? Because this woman and in her younger form, and you know what? I'm going to play it just for the simple fact of, like, those of y'all who need to get y'all she debates William Shockley. Just understanding how to debate in these spaces. I'm gonna play this. You say yes, please. Hell yeah. Okay, we're gonna let her rip. Because I want y'all to just peep game from our elder. I'm gonna let this run. I'm gonna let her take the screen and let her eat his ass up. And y'all enjoy. This is my tribute, and this platform's tribute to Dr. Frances Cres Welsing, one of the main cornerstone inspirations of the new Black media, the B1, and this Black grassroots, and our whole philosophy as a whole. So, without further ado, we are going to let the Queen Mother go ahead and get all up in William Shockley's ass. Enjoy.
What he is doing are no different than the propaganda campaign that Hitler and his Nazi unit carried on in Germany that ended up eliminating 6 million Jewish people. Now, what is most interesting is that Hitler said the very same thing. He said, number one, that the Jews were genetically inferior to the Aryans.
If one believes that the German people would have tolerated the concentration camps and the gas chambers, if news media, like the programs that Mr. Brown is setting on, if those people were willing to bring discordant views out into the open, I don't believe the concentration camps and the gas chambers could have continued to exist in Germany.
Back in the 70s, a man named Dr. William Shockley, a noted scientist, embarked upon the mission of proving to the world that black people are genetically inferior, without, I might add, the benefit of any formal background in genetics. He became front-page news and won headlines with his controversial views. On campus after campus, unrest followed his every visit. My position then and now is that if a supremacist cannot be rationally debated, perhaps he has a point. After the debate you're now going to see, Dr. Shockley went back into oblivion. I don't claim that the 1973 interview did it alone, but I am of the opinion that it helped. I'm Tony Brown. In a moment, Racial Superiority with Dr. William Shockley. We have two very prominent educators, scholars on Black Journal tonight, and we feel that it is important to defend the First Amendment rights of all Americans. Dr. William Shockley, one of our guests, has had quite a difficult time speaking at some universities, and particularly some black college students do not agree with his theories. On Black Journal, we feel that Dr. Shockley's rights in the First Amendment area are parallel to black people's rights. That is, that Dr. Shockley must have a platform for his views if black people are to have a platform for their views. Dr. Frances Welsing, on the other side, has difficulty in expressing her views on legitimate mass media outlets because many whites do not agree with her theory of genetics. Now let's find out what the controversy is about. Dr. Shockley, please give us the benefit, basically, of what your theory is.
My principal point, Mr. Brown, is not so much a theory of black-white differences, but is summed up in one word, which is the theme of my appearance on your program and my efforts, and the word is dysgenics. And dysgenics means effectively downbreeding, retrogressive evolution. And I fear that this is worst for the black community, and I particularly welcome an opportunity to appear on Black Journal just for these reasons. And let me say also that when I first met Dr. Welsing, it was not black students who were disrupting, but white students. And Dr. Welsing made a very sincere and I thought extremely effective effort a well-planned effort. It was not effective with these white students at Staten Island Community College, so I would have a chance to speak. In fact, I think they prevented her from saying what she wanted to say when she was trying to gain me a platform. So my main theme is that we have problems that we should face and we should look at connected with dysgenics, and I welcome any opportunity I have to bring this out so that people can look at it and worry about it.
Dr. Shockley, you are accused of having a theory that is a white racist theory. How do you respond to that?
Well, I respond to that by saying that I've considered whether or not I am a racist. Racist is an epithet that used to damage my self-esteem, but it doesn't anymore. I feel it's untrue. If you look in the dictionary as to what racist means, it means emotional feelings, irrational feelings associated with fear and hate. If I really had those, I don't think I would be here this evening. I feel that what I'm engaged in is a demand for diagnosis, and I'd like to say some more about this chart, which we'll come to probably later, which shows the disproportionate rates of reproduction for the least effective elements of the black community. I'd like to say more about that than we should in just this brief introduction. But I think there is another word that better describes what I'm involved in, and that word is raceology, which means a scientific analysis of racial differences. And I have a faith that reason is a good thing, and I feel, as you do about the First Amendment, but maybe with a slightly different emphasis. I think the really important thing about the First Amendment is it is a way of guaranteeing a high likelihood that truth will emerge as a result of conflicting ideas being expressed, and I have a thesis and a basic belief that truth is a good thing and will be of benefit to man.
Thank you. Dr. Frances Welsing, give us the benefit of your theory, please.
Well, my theory was, I wrote the paper in 1969. I wrote a paper called The Cres Theory of Color Confrontation and Racism. And the sole reason behind writing that paper was an attempt to understand the behavior of white people in relationship to all people of color, every place in the world, black, brown, red, and yellow people. And the paper was presented to the Americans at the National Medical Association, the section on psychiatry, in neurology, because back in 1969, the Black Caucus in the American Psychiatric Association, we had said that racism, and when we talk about racism, we're talking about the white supremacy behavior of white people. That racism was the #1 mental health problem in the nation, and it was the #1 cause of other mental health problems. And I wanted to understand what this thing of racism really is all about, because it's the thing that has caused woe and misery and suffering for the vast majority of the people on this planet that are classified as non-white. And in my attempt to understand why the necessity of white people to keep saying that white is superior and that the condition of non-white is inferior. And the more I thought about it, in conjunction with an idea that a friend of mine had, that racism was a worldwide behavioral system for the maintenance of white supremacy by a small minority of people, I put those ideas together with what we know about genetics, what we know about the condition of skin whiteness itself. The condition of skin whiteness is the genetic inability to produce skin pigment called melanin. This is a genetic recessive trait. It is a genetic deficiency state, not as defined by Frances Welsing, but defined by geneticists and dermatologists, that the inability to produce the skin pigment of melanin or melanin pigment is described as albinism. And I think that white people, even though most white people are not consciously understanding their problem in genetics, they are certainly aware that they are genetically dominated by people of color. That's why it was a statement, one drop of black blood makes you black, because people of color have the genetic capacity to annihilate white people. And so unless white people control the reproductivity of people of color, then we can postulate that perhaps one day there won't be any white people. And I think that the very survival of white people necessitates that they project genetic inferiority on people of color, because it is they who really are aware that they are genetic recessive and perhaps genetically inferior to people of color. And I am not saying this to to call the condition of skin whiteness to say, well, no, white people are inferior. I'm not saying it for that purpose, but I think that it is of prime importance for the majority of people in the world to understand why it is that white people have to, the effective majority, large numbers of white people, have to move in a hostile and an aggressive way against people of color and have to constantly focus on it's you who's genetically inferior because they realize that there's something wrong with their genetic status. Now,
may I take a call?
Oh, sure,
all right.
please.
Let me, so that, because we have a number of calls, and we'll see what the public wants to find out also. Just 1 second. Hello, go ahead, please. You're on Black Journal.
I would like to ask the question, why does the doctor feel that his theory, Dr. Shockley, why did you feel that your theory is correct?
Well, let me say that's a long question. Let me point out one aspect. I mean, it's a question that calls for a very long answer. I think I might just at this point say that in a time like 1 hour, we may expose a problem and encourage thinking about it, and this is a very valuable thing. But to cover either Dr. Welsing's views or mine, and let me say here are, just to show that these things exist, is a pamphlet that she was good enough to give me some time ago.
This one's upside down.
Well, that one's upside down.
Yeah,
thank you.
Right.
And this is one of my own. It's actually a collection of a debate.
The Imperatives of Ethnic Education is yours.
This is the issue of the journal. Mine was, the title of my paper is somewhat different from this, but I want to say that speaking for myself, if people would like to write to me at Stanford University, I have a post box there, Post Box S, which is the same as Shockley and Stanford. I will try to supply more information, and I'm sure Dr. Welsing will say what she can do about making, telling people how to reach her pamphlet.
Okay.
But now let me say this chart that I held up a moment ago is very important in respect to this question of why I think there may be what proves a basic difference. But I'm going to say that if there were not a basic difference in intellectual capacity in the past, there probably will be a basic difference between black and white intellectual capacity in the future, simply because of the reproduction patterns. And these are Census Bureau data, and this is the most threatening aspect. And what it indicates is that for the black women of the lowest intellectual social class, which are rural farm women, generally the education is least, the average number of children is 5.4. For women with college degrees, it's 1.9. And so this is definitely unfavorable. It is reproducing far more at the bottom end and not enough to keep even at the top end.
Dr. Shockley, can
For
you
whites,
explain?
let me just finish this. For whites, the numbers are also in this direction, but nowhere nearly as severe.
Dr. Shockley, I think that in all fairness, you should explain to the audience why it is that you have, first of all, you have a very large segment of the black population who are on farms, who are deprived in cities. Why don't you explain at the time that you're showing this, who is keeping black people in a situation like they're in? I mean, it could be, you could turn it around the other way, where you could have very large numbers of black people who are exposed to educational opportunities like white people, who are exposed to housing, who are exposed to health facilities. Why don't you explain that at the same time that you put figures like that?
I'm sure you would explain it,
No, but I
Dr.
think
Welsing,
it's important
but
in
one must say
answering.
first things first. And you've raised the basic question there, and that is whether the disadvantages are primarily a lack of opportunity or whether they are primarily a basic genetic difference. And let me mention one thing, which is that in certain areas there is no doubt about black superiority. Blacks are superior in visual acuity, and they're superior in a systematic way. Now, I don't expect that people will understand the details of this, but I simply want to show that quantitative work can be done. This happens to be a research job of my own. And what it shows, because these points that you see here lie on a line, which is not the central line, but they lie systematically on a line, what it says is that so far as visual acuity is concerned, blacks are systematically better than whites. It's as if their bell-shaped curve, their distribution curve, were pushed upwards compared to whites for visual acuity, or at least for the avoidance of bad eyesight, such that if the same shift occurred for IQ, it would mean that the average IQ distribution would be up by 9 points rather than down by about 15 points, which is the typical average.
Dr. Shockley, visual acuity is probably something that the system of white supremacy has not necessarily seen the need to affect the environment that...
Can I just say this part? There's a lot of black people, including myself clearly, who wear glasses. Mr. Shockley, yeah, I guess you kind of missed on that one. Lord.
Black people are in so that it will alter the fact that they have visual acuity that is superior to whites. The fact of visual acuity is not attacked in the same way as educational opportunity and job performance is attacked. And I think that
it's evidence for a genetic difference, in my
you see what I'm saying? There might be many, many more genetic differences where people of color appear superior.
If I may, we have a number of people, and we'd like to get to as many as possible. If you could make your answers as, not to compromise your explanation, but if you could make your answers as succinct, I would appreciate it, because we'd like to involve the public as much as we can. One moment, please. You're on Black Journal. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I was wondering if Dr. Shockley could explain the basic difference between the course he is taking in explaining white supremacy and the course that Hitler took during the Nazism reign.
Thank you.
Well, there are enormous differences. In fact, the lesson to be learned from Nazi history is frequently very misunderstood. And it is a lesson which Mr. Brown has told us about earlier. It's the First Amendment. It's not that eugenics is intolerable. Actually, the eugenic programs, which are the opposite of dysgenics, eugenic programs are not inconceivable. They're not inhumane. Denmark has been carrying out programs with strong eugenic implications for maybe 30 years. And it's important to note that since World War II, Denmark's per capita homicide rate dropped and is now approximately 1/20th. That is, the number of deaths of probability of being killed in a year by a violent homicide is roughly, the order of 100 times less for young Danes than it is for young American blacks. Now, but the lesson, let me say what the lesson of Nazi history we have in this country, and it will protect us. It's just the thing that makes this program possible. The First Amendment, which allows freedom of speech. If one believes that is not the right answer, then one has to be one of the most anti-German racists there can be. If one believes that the German people would have tolerated the concentration camps and the gas chambers, if news media, like the programs that Mr. Brown is setting on, if those people were willing to bring discordant views out into the open, I don't believe the concentration camps and the gas chambers could have continued to exist in Germany.
I'd like to comment, because I'd like to say that I don't think that there's a major difference between what Dr. Shockley is doing. I don't think that Dr. Shockley is fully aware of what he is doing and why he is doing what he's doing. But the long-range implications of what he is doing are no different than the propaganda campaign that Hitler and his Nazi unit carried on in Germany that ended up eliminating 6 million Jewish people. Now, what is most interesting is that Hitler said the very same thing. He said, number one, that the Jews were genetically inferior to the Aryans. Number two, he was aware that the Semites had genetically dominant material, genetic material to the Aryans. And if we begin to understand the way that people who were in Europe at the time that the Semites arrived from Africa, when the Semites arrived in Europe from Africa, they were people who had substantial amounts of color and who had very kinky hair because they were from the continent of Africa. And the Europeans, the white people who were there, had a reaction, a color reaction to the Semites that is no different than the reaction and the concern on the part of people who are white in this area of the world or any other area of the world to people who have the genetic capacity to produce color, who can genetically annihilate their position. And I think it's very, very important. Even though Dr. Shockley, I am convinced that Dr. Shockley believes that he is perhaps elevating science with all of his charts and all of his figures, but he doesn't understand the things that propel him as a white individual in a social system that has programmed him throughout his life and programmed large numbers of people like him to focus on the genetics of people of color in such a way as to destroy people of color?
I would like to ask a question, and Dr. Shockley, if you could answer it yes or no, I would appreciate it. Do you believe that black people are inferior in intelligence because of their heredity?
I have a standard statement. It is not yes or no. It's memorized. I say it at the same time every time, I think. What I say is this. My research leads me, and it's a tragic conclusion, really. My research leads me inescapably to the opinion that the major cause of the American Negro's intellectual and social deficits is hereditary and racially genetic in origin, and thus not remediable to a major degree by practical improvements in environment.
All right, if you believe that the position relatively of black Americans to white Americans is based on a genetic inferiority, and I will accept the responsibility for that word, then what do you see as the solution to the problem?
Well, I see the first aspect of this is to prevent the problem from becoming worse by dysgenics. This first word
Would
that
you
I
translate
mentioned.
dysgenics for me and the audience?
Would
that be sterilization?
No. Dysgenics, you see, means what that other chart I showed you says.
Should blacks,
the least effective element.
Should blacks be sterilized?
No. I have a...
but if blacks are a problem and we do not allow...
This is inhumane. And
Dr.
I think one can find more humane solutions to this.
Well, then how would...
I would propose something in which one of the key phrases is regardless of sex, race, or welfare status. And this is the proposal. I call it a thinking exercise. It's mentioned in that pamphlet that I showed that you can obtain. And it goes this way, that you would offer a bonus to everyone to be sterilized. Now, we know we have a population explosion problem. We know that in India that bonuses in the form of transistor radios are offered to people.
Would this bonus be directed to black people specifically, more than white?
Mr. Brown, what did I say just a moment ago? I said, regardless of sex, race, or welfare status.
Now, there is a group,
that's what I say.
There is a group of white people to whom this offer should be made also.
Absolutely. Now, the offer is based upon the best estimates, best scientific estimates that one can have of any genetically carried disabilities. Now, there are some, I think, that any humane person would have no doubt about. And Dr. Welsing talked about dominant and recessive genes. I want to point out that sometimes a dominant gene can be a very bad thing, and it is a very bad thing for a neurological disease called Huntington's chorea, which is something like multiple sclerosis.
Which is more prominent in white people than black people.
That is correct. And I think that one should offer a large bonus for anyone who might be potentially carrying Huntington's chorea.
Dr. Shockley,
beyond this, it goes on with some other factors in this, but Dr. Welsing wishes to speak.
Are you aware that white people have more genetic diseases that affect their nervous system than people of color, than black people?
I wouldn't be at all surprised. And I think blacks apparently have higher heart problems.
Would you suggest that all of these white people who are carrying these defective genes, you know, whose families may carry these defective genes, that they be examined and it would be suggested to them that they be sterilized? Would you suggest this?
Yes, I think I would, probably, in general.
Go ahead, you're on Black Journal, please.
What we know about ancient black civilizations, how can American blacks suddenly be genetically regressive?
Thank you.
Let me just say this. What is very interesting is in the study of biology, biologists who have studied evolution, one of the very interesting things that they say is that the more functional skin pigment cells in the animal kingdom, the higher you are on the scale of phylogenetic ascension. In other words, nature in the course of evolution went to its highest state when it produced a cell that could produce pigment, and that we were sliding backwards. The mutation to albinism is a step backwards in the scale of evolution. Are you aware of that, Dr. Shockley?
No, I'm not aware of that particular one. I am aware of another basic genetic difference, and that is that the rate of maturation of a neurological system gets longer and longer the more advanced the animal is. And that is one of the items on the racial difference, that the neurological development of blacks is faster than whites. Black babies walk on the average a month earlier than white babies. And the period of
black
gestation...
people are much more creative also than white
Dr. Wells, Shockley, correct me if I'm incorrect. Didn't the Giselle schedule, which tested the intelligence of children, make a correlative between intelligence and walking early?
Yes.
And I would think it probably would have been negative.
No, it was not. It was positive.
Well,
the motor skills on the Giselle schedule indicated that earlier precocious walking children, there was a correlation between that and high intelligence.
This may be true. It might be true within a group. I'm not sure of that.
Well, maybe
I know that there is a correlation in terms of things earlier than walking. In this, at the 6-month stage, Nancy Bailey at Berkeley has established that white children who come from the most advanced families and who later, when they become older, are out at the top, at the first 6 months they are relatively retarded compared to children who are from families of less accomplishment and who don't go as far. But this, so there are a number of these things certainly to be brought in.
Fine.
But this
well-advanced families. Okay, so what he was also doing there was doing something that people are trying to do to us socially now, and they're trying to instill the glass ceiling of what has been set by the powers that shouldn't be of success, which is not our limit. That is not what we are bound to, by no means. But he's well aware of this. See, this is why these people talk like this to us this day. They literally come into these spaces talking just like William Shockley, with just newfangled, new wave age bullcrap like what he talking about.
Giselle schedule is a very authentic, accepted, institutional, psychological experiment.
And so is the Nancy Bailey early test.
I'd like to take another call at this point. You're on Black Journal. Go ahead, please.
Hello. This question is addressed to Dr. Welsing. First, I would like to say that Mr. Brown and Dr. Welsing disprove immediately Dr. Shockley's concept, because here we have two highly intelligent, gifted people. And but getting this out of the way, Dr. Welsing, wouldn't you agree that there is a strong genetic component to the inheritance of intelligence? Geneticists believe that 80% component is hereditary. Let me finish, Dr. Welsing. And then also, I think the association of skin color with intelligence is an erroneous concept, and I want your views on this. Isn't it true that the historic fate of black people, the tragic deprivation, the conditions under which they were raised, any people raised under these conditions would have an hereditary, evolutionary background, which could lead to poor capacity to generalize, to conceptualize, to be creative in the form field of ideas, and develop other excellent attributes. Now, this is not a racist idea. This could happen to any group who has a tragic history of the black people.
Thank you.
No, I do not feel that there's any evidence to suggest that 80% of the ability to come to terms with your environment, that has to do with heredity. I think that much of it has to do with the environmental opportunity that the genetic material is exposed to. I think that if we look at the black people, if we just take the black group, and we look at those people who have been able to achieve, and we look at their backgrounds, we will find that they have had substantial social and economic opportunities that maybe some of the segment of the black population has not had. We'll find the same thing in the white group. Those white people who have been socioeconomically deprived and at the bottom of the economic scale for whites, that these people are not performing in the same way that people who have extended socioeconomic opportunity. One of the very interesting things is that white women are now talking about women's liberation, and they are looking at their performance relative to white men, and they are saying, and all of the spokesmen for white women, and men and women are also saying, that the reason that the white woman has less confidence in her performance and is not performing as well, relatively speaking, as the white male has been the attitudes within the white family as to the role of the woman versus the role of the man. Now, what is interesting is that when white people are looking at the difference in the performance of the white woman and the white man on IQ tests, they can account for that on the basis of environmental influences. However, when they shift over into looking at whites relative to people of color, somehow they want to drop that understanding and that awareness.
It's been interesting, to say the least. I'm happy you had your say, Dr. Shockley and Dr. Welsing. I'm happy you had yours, and thank you for being on Black Journal.
Well, you know, that was a lesson in a few different levels. One of them, let me break down one level real quick, is how to debate skillfully. One thing we want to do and one thing some of our elders and our previous scholars have taught us is to always come to debate prepared. So that means you have your facts together. You have your research together. Because at this stage in the game, we are moving in a spirit of intellect. That's why it's a feared situation. These people who they were trying to starve out, their message didn't die. And, you know, now they know it has new legs. So always be mindful. We can get caught up in a lot of different things. One of those would be emotional reactions. We always want to make sure we don't emotionally react. We really actually only want to entertain anything that is truly in opposition to us. In opposition to us are people who are tied in politically. And so when people are tied into things politically, that is something that can affect us. Someone who is just trolling on the internet saying random racist things, that's a distraction, not anything that should be allowed for disruption. So again, understand the difference between trolling and roadblocks. Roadblocks are things that can actually prevent you from getting further. A troll is trying to get you to prevent yourself from going further. You understand what I just said? So when you have a troll getting you to dig into your own emotion, they're winning. Remember what a troll is. A troll is a spirit and energy only built for distraction. You are responsible for staying on your square at all times. If anyone gets you off of that, you allowed them to do it. When you allow them to do it, you will have to own the responsibility for doing so. What we are seeing out here, the pressure is on. These old philosophies that they wanted to starve out are coming right back down their throat. Full force in multiple voices and faces. They want to do everything they can to circumvent that. And the more they can of us in this direction to have distracted, they will look to benefit. Will you benefit from anything you get engaged in that is non-productive to the group's success? That is the way to start looking at things now. If you're going to be public, you better make sure it's focused, or it needs to be pushed to the wayside. Because at this stage in the game, there's nothing that should have importance. There's going to be coons. There's going to be white supremacists out there. If they are not in the way, then they are irrelevant. Be glad that somebody's paying you enough attention just to troll you. Because at the end of the day, that's what a troll is. See, a politician can get in your way. A congressman can get in your way. A judge, police can get in your way. People who are clicked in with political figures and law enforcement, they can get in your way. None of that will be fought on Twitter. Everybody under the voice hear me good. None of that will be fought on Twitter. See, the one thing about it is, I do get, as movements progress, things get bigger, there will be people who believe things are about how people see people. I've long said early, when this was a channel of 21 subscribers, I said then, I'm not in a popularity contest. If I could get to 300, I'm good. We got what we got here, which is more. And it happened in the day, not too long after I said that. So again, everybody's objectives in this thing are clearly different. However, my vision is not just simply about me. See, we have to flood the zone on positivity and intelligent banter. All of this skill, a lot of y'all have went to school. I don't want to see none of y'all that done went to college online, back and forth arguing with nobody. Y'all have intellect. No need to be ghetto. No need to be immature. Time to start stepping that level up. That's been one of the biggest things that they have done to us, is to keep us perpetual children. No more of that. So unless this person is really a threat to you, then they're irrelevant. I've seen, unfortunately, there's a lot of internet back and forth going on in this lane and that lane and this lane and the other lane. One thing that is not going to be productive for anyone is for all of that to be public. Unless it's all about like reality TV. If it's love in Twitter, then that's cool. But unfortunately, we have people that can come in and they get funded by other outside entities. We have a lot of grassroots entities in these spaces that are built on the followers of those spaces. Just come and bring in the straight real, comes bringing the straight truth. You got other people who can fall into algorithms because of the powers that be, and YouTube wants them to get the face. Just, for those of you who have been following people back in 2010, 2008 and beyond, understand what you have seen in the last few years of how many people have came on the scene and have went. Now I understand those are some there's a lot of y'all newbies. Cool, because as things grow, there's going to be a lot of people new to this. Understand, majority of the people you're going to be talking to of new black media got 10 years straight on you. So I know because we're accessible, it seems like, oh yeah. I woke up yesterday, I'm going to be talking to this dude. Yo, we want to be accessible, but unfortunately in these open cyberspaces, sometimes things just have to be closed off. You don't let everybody into your house. You don't let everybody on your block. You don't let everybody know where you live, for good reason. Keep your cyber community that way. Feel me? So I want to say peace, power, and blessings. And to Dr. Frances Cres Welsing, and what she was able to deliver on this broadcast, because I just want to really just celebrate her and let her speak. I gave a little bit of news. I actually could have gave a little more news, but I just really wanted to make today about her, since it's a Friday and it's actually her birthday on the full moon. How about that? I would play Brandy, but I ain't cleared to play that one. So, but for those of y'all who just want to rock out, go bump that Brandy, in your leisure time tonight. That's a cut. That's a cut. Yeah. Fair says like fair. That's a slap. If you need to go look at that moon, I can't do too much. I'll get dinged because I'm on pitch. But with that being said, Babylon is falling. Babylon is falling. Let it fall and let us rise. Can you dig it? So yeah, this has been the weekly wrap-up right here. Beatzilla PDX official, celebrating the Queen Mother, Dr. Frances Cres Welsing. We played, if you were just now getting here a little late, you can go back and watch the replay. There's a lot of game that she gave all throughout the years. So I played some newer, some of the clips like right before she passed. And then also I played one from about 14, 15 years ago. Oh, and then also we went all the way back to 1974. Yeah, we went all the way back to 1974. So being able to show 3 different phases of her teaching, which clearly was consistent. For those who are unaware of what she has done, she is the author of the ISIS papers. So I hope y'all enjoyed it. The very last thing I played once again was the debate of her and William Shockley. So she really roasted Cat, and she did it very eloquently. So another thing I wanted to y'all to take from that is notice how laid back she was in her approach in debate. She was able to observe everything about this cat. Okay? So one of the biggest things you could do, just make sure before you give a reaction because you don't like someone, let them speak, because this might be easy work if you actually let them talk. Let them talk, because they might talk themselves in the circle before you can even interrupt them. Don't interrupt them. Let them finish. Let them finish themselves. And see, don't ever worry about me saying this, because a liar will never be able to change his strategy. You can literally tell a liar, this is what you're about to do. They will still do it. Like, you can literally tell them, you're about to say this. I'm not about to say this. Bam! Clockwork. It is what it is. So, family, thank you once again for spending this Friday evening with me. Like, share this broadcast with your family and friends, and those who might be on the cusp of misunderstanding and being misled, and they think that, it looks like Trump gonna run again. Well, if they don't understand that these are 2 feathers, 2 wings of the same bird, right and left. There ain't no separation. One thing, one objective. Global, like the sister said, global white supremacy. So if they need to hear it from her and not us youngins, well, then let them hear it from a doctor and a scholar tell you it's global white supremacy. One of the reasons why we pay attention to global mistreatment of black people all over the world. Follow me on Instagram, beatzillapdx. Follow me on Twitter, beatzillapdx. Follow me on Facebook, beatzillapdx. And on Patreon, beatzillapdx official. And on Melanated People, Michael Beatzilla Whitmore. And you can email me at ourrealtruth@gmail.com. That's ourrealtruth@gmail.com. And if you feel so inclined to put some money in the bucket, you definitely can do so by way of donation at CashApp, $BeatZillaPDX. CashApp, $BeatZillaPDX. And of course, we also have PayPal. That is Zilla Music. That is ZILLAMUZAK. So hopefully y'all will have a blessed, prosperous weekend. Don't let no static get in your mix. Who old enough to remember the James Brown song with Full Force, Static? Don't start none. Won't be none. Static. Oh, that is older than a couple of my moderators. Lord. Yeah, go get this. But yeah, if y'all for a couple of y'all, go just bump that. Check out James Brown, Static. It's a song where he came back like when we was in high school, middle school, high school. James Brown came out with a record after he got out of jail and did a record with Full Force. And the first song off that was I'm Real. I'm the real super bad because ain't nobody out there good enough to take the things I have. Yeah, James Brown the king. James Brown is the king. I mean, what man do you know that can say, please, 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 don't go. That's it. For a whole song. That's it. And I mean, I love you. Baby, please don't. He made, that was it. So yeah, we are an exceptional people, hands down, amongst many things. So shout out to Dr. Frances Cres Welsing. Shout out to James Brown. I'm black and I'm proud. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Thank you for being here on this Friday evening, this weekly wrap up as we do here every Friday. And make sure you tune in every Wednesday right here on this YouTube channel for our midweek report. And of course, every Friday for the weekly wrap up. Also, make sure you tune in to Our Real Truth, the podcast, and also it simultaneously will run here at Anchor FM, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and iTunes, and other various streaming platforms. So with that being said, y'all keep y'all 3 smooth stones in your slingshot. Because we slang the truth around here. Peace, power, blessings, and protection, y'all. Shalom. Yahweh Shem, Yahweh Shai, Barakatah.
When you know who Satan is, yes, sir, you don't have to kill him. No. The stone of truth. Yes. See, that's what you throw. Yes, right. Allah says, had we wished to take a pastime from before, surely we would have done it. Nay, we cast truth at falsehood till we knock out its brains. Every one of you that knows the truth, stand up and tell it from the mountaintop. Black people can't take it no more. So wherever you are on the job, in the factory, I don't care where you are. If you know the truth, stand up on the truth and tell Satan, who the hell are you to try and pick my friends? Farrakhan is God's man, and you are from the enemy of God. So to hell with you. Stand up on it like a man.